happening in here. But anyway, I have been immensely grateful for the support of my husband and family in this Europe travel, from their constant chauffeuring to train stations and airports, to the looking after of the greenhouse, which they have faithfully undertaken this year, to the provision of food on the table as I have come home. They have been the solid rock beneath my feet. And as one suitcase arrived home and another was packed, and they said, "Where are you off to now?" They have done that with such constant love and support, and the year would not have been possible without them. I want to express my gratitude to the Secretary and the Assistant Secretary for their care and support during this year. I'd like you all to know that at one point I asked the Secretary of the Conference if the conference budget for this presbyteral session might stretch to Barbara Dixon coming to sing the song, "Another Suitcase, Another Hall." I'm not entirely sure that he got the cultural reference, or that he knew who Barbara Dixon was, but he was, as ever, immensely courteous as he declined the request. The connectional team, in their entirety, have been their brilliant, able and generous self throughout the year, and I want to thank them for that. And most particularly the support of Rachel Tottenham, who acts as executive assistant to the presidency, the designate to the extras, the assistant secretary of the conference, and others. This year has been only possible through her magnificent support, and I'm glad and grateful for her so much. Madam Vice President has been the best of companions on this presidential journey, always kind and compassionate, thoughtful and wise. There has been much laughter and much joy and endless peace. And for that, I'm thankful. This leads me to the subject of lost property. I shared the story of my leaving my ordination Bible with Brian's precious signature in it in Kenya, and I shared that story with you last year in the conference of 2024, and how it was returned to me from Kenya via Uganda and Nigeria by the resourceful Andrew Ashdown, Partnership Coordinator for Africa. I wish now to confess that a pattern emerged. So I wish to thank all the chairs of district, and above all the vice president, who sought to prevent me leaving possessions behind during the numerous district visits that we made. I still, however, despite all of their care, managed to leave all of my preaching bands in Malta, my coat in Scotland, and to arrive in the Channel Islands without a single clerical collar. I wish to declare now that the Connectional Lost Property Office can be closed down, because I'm sure that the next team will be much more careful. I've always understood the presidency to be principally a ministry of patience and visitation, a focused paying attention to local Methodists throughout the entire connection, involving careful listening and being encouraging of continued faithfulness. Invite two. To visit Wales and Scotland, the Isle of Man, Malta and Gibraltar, the Channel Islands, as well as much else in Europe, has given me a picture of Methodism that has surprised even me at this stage after almost 40 years of ministry. It encouraged me, and it actually provoked me to reconsider what our future might look like. Our diversity as a connection is a rich, glorious gift from God. And I do wish we celebrate that more. During the year, I've worshipped in in many languages, as I have throughout my ministry, been glad to learn music and songs from a global inheritance. But I have been particularly glad in this year, where on different occasions I worshipped in services where my Gaelic and Welsh were used, and I was thrilled to visit a chapel in the Channel Islands where the Ten Commandments were written on the wall in French. I want to thank the chairs of district for their generous care and hospitality during my visit. I only stole one pair of sunglasses and I think it was enough. I began my visit in the East Anglia district in Norwich at the shrine of Julian, the writer of the earliest surviving text in English written by a woman. And I had always longed to visit, and I don't know why it took me so long. Julian was a mystic, a poet, who expressed a profound spirituality after experiencing a revelation of divine love in a period of profound ill health. She entered a small cell attached to a church in Norwich, and there she prayed and wrote and lived and died. In the week of prayer for Christian unity, the warden of the shrine, Father Richard, invited me to lead prayers in the shrine. Church was damaged in the bombing of the Second World War, but right at the base of the shrine you can touch the stones of the earliest foundation of that cell and church, and it is a place filled with prayer. Afterwards, in the visitor centre, over a cup of tea, the warden said, "Madam President, I've been on the Methodist Church website. I've looked up your itinerary. It looks like a bit of a royal progress." He was referring to those tours of England a monarch would make visiting key people and places. I responded by saying it was nothing so grand, because I was nothing so grand, except in a real Yorkshire sense of being a grand lass. I did say to him that I didn't think I'd slept in as many beds as Elizabeth I, but it was getting close. Being clear to me since that moment in Norwich that the year of presidency has not been an itinerary, a connectional tour, but rather a profound and life-changing pilgrimage. For in this last year, I, with the Vice President, have travelled across the connection, and the love of God has been shown to me, perhaps not as dramatically as to Julian in her visions, but without a doubt, I can now bear witness to the love of God being shown, revealed, made real in so many ways and in so many places, and not just in the spheres where I have up until now inhabited or ministered. The making known of the love of God in bold, generous, and costly ways is being done by local Methodists in some extraordinary ways, in so many places. And my head is full of images of really brilliant pieces of work in local situations. It's made me proud to be a Methodist, and glad that in rejecting the ways of privilege, abuse of power, and paying attention to the needs of those on the economic margins, local Methodist churches are indeed learning to do what is right, seeking justice, and challenging oppression, in the words of the prophet Isaiah. which Madam Vice President and I took as our theme, as they live and work alongside the communities they serve. There are too many stories to tell, but I intend spending the rest of my days telling them, but I've chosen just 4 on this occasion. One is from England, one from Wales, one from the Isle of Man, and one from the Channel Islands. In Plymouth, I sat in a community hair salon as a homeless man was encouraged to enter the salon by another homeless man who earlier that morning had had his hair cut. He now brought his friend to the salon. The second man sat on the doorstep for at least 10 minutes until he felt brave enough to come in. Very, very gently, he was invited into the salon warmly, and he was treated as an honoured guest. He had his hair washed and then cut. He had tea and cake served on a china plate. There was a check to the bandage on his foot, and a fresh coat, in fact 2 in the end, were offered to him. There was such gentleness, tenderness, and love shown in that encounter. And I was deeply aware as I sat within the community in that place that afternoon, where a Bible sat on the coffee table in the middle of all that we were doing, and God talk was as frequent as other kinds of conversation, that many, many people would have passed this man by in the street and ignored him and not seen him. But that afternoon, in this community, in this salon underneath a Methodist logo, and with his hair cut by a Methodist presbyter, he was seen and recognised as one of God's beloved children. He was offered care, compassion, and dignity, and the love of God was made real in that moment, in that space, within the salon community. And if you want to hear more, I think that the Pioneer Minister and Presbyter Darren Middleton is here in this session of the conference. Talk to him about that piece of work. On the Isle of Man, Peel Methodist Church offers a drop-in cafe 3 days a week. Many churches do this. You'll be sat there thinking, oh, well, we do that. But it's a really good example of what one community is doing with a big building that perhaps is no longer full on a Sunday. A lot of space has been created at the back by the removal of church furniture. Don't get me going on the subject of church furniture. Here there were good soft sofas, tables, comfortable chairs put into that space. It's a warm and friendly and well-staffed group. It's meant to be a kind of come and go kind of group. But I noticed the afternoon we were there, everyone comes, because even if they arrive halfway through, what they want to stay for is the prayer time at the end, when after a reading of scripture, everyone is prayed for by name, including on that afternoon, the Vice President and I. Referrals come to the group from GPs and other services. It's described as a place where it's okay not to be okay. It looks like a new kind of Christian community to me. And in contrast to some of church life, where actually we're meant to keep up a pretense that we are okay. It was a very loving community. And again, everyone who came was welcomed, seen, valued, and loved. In Cardiff, the Trinity Methodist Centre is a one-stop shop, as it were, for asylum seekers and refugees. It offers friendship and welcome, help with applications, play space for children, a women's-only creative arts collective, a group of women cooks are working towards establishing a catering company English language classes and 2 church groups, one an Urdu Hindi-speaking congregation led by a Methodist presbyter and an Ethiopian Orthodox congregation who worship in Amharic. It's known in Cardiff as the refugee place. I think there are worse things to be known as a Methodist building. There are worse names to be known by. Local Methodists with others have shown such persistence and faithfulness in seeking to transform their building into something welcoming, fit for purpose, something to be proud of. I was delighted that the first thing they wanted to show me in the refurbished building was the toilets. The centre manager, Fleur, wanted to offer the best to those who came, and the toilets were now the best. And before the refurbishment, she was embarrassed by the poor provision. All that was missing was a ribbon to cut. At the recent service of Thanksgiving and rededication of the building, the opening verse of the opening hymn, written by Hannah Briggs, was sung. We sang, "You call us out to praise you, the God who gave us birth, to gather in communion and treasure your whole earth." When arrived in Cardiff from the war-torn places of the globe, feel treasured in this space